What's up, the internet? Angry Asian here, and I'd like to start by saying that I actually really like Joe Rogan and Bret Weinstein. But what in the fucking fuck is Bret Weinstein talking about here?
And what that means is racism that has almost died out is still alive and well in a sense, because all you have to do is take people who are born into a neighborhood that is devoid of opportunity and continue that pattern. If no opportunity shows up, then people who were oppressed are now going to continue to be oppressed. And so it feels personal, but it isn't. It's just reproducing an existing pattern.
As some of you may remember, Bret Weinstein was fired from his uber-progressive university professorship when he dared to speak out against blacks forcing whites off the campus for a certain day.
This is a protest here. Our presence now is our protest.
We come here as students against campus racism and against anti-blackness on campus. And we would like to reach out to the students of color, the humanities, as well as the sciences that we are here to support. And we want to dismantle anti-blackness and confine. We want to give some sense of solidarity and provide safety and outcome.
A few moments later.
Hey, ho, ho! Bret Weinstein's got to go! Hey, ho, ho! Bret Weinstein's got to go!
And I honestly don't think he's a bad guy or doing anything intentionally. I just think that he hasn't experienced enough of the world outside his ivory tower to understand that the people he thinks the system is skewed against are the people that benefit the most from it. The only systemic racism is against Asians. Blacks and Latinos are given more than anybody. Just look at Osama bin Laden. He was accepted to Harvard despite a C average from a third-rate school, and they even changed the rules so he could become the editor-in-chief of the Harvard Law Review from being pure academics-based merit to having a subjective writing component, because Osama bin Obama sure as hell wasn't smart enough to compete based on merit.
The absence of leadership is going to prevent us from doing what we should do, and that means that the next set of predictions are far more dire.
What is your next set of predictions?
Well, I would say we are headed for a collision course with history. I mean, we're really staring at many scenarios that end in some kind of civil war.
It does bug me, though, that he takes his shots at Trump during this interview. Donald Trump could cure cancer tomorrow and pay part of the national debt off with his own money, but Weinstein hates him still because Orange Man bad. Soy boy! And the media. Instead of letting us hear the man speak for himself, they give us their skewed interpretation of his words. I bet Weinstein didn't even see this clip.
Before going further on this exciting day for all America in space, I want to say a few words about the situation in Minnesota. The death of George Floyd on the streets of Minneapolis was a grave tragedy. It should never have happened. It has filled Americans all over the country with horror, anger, and grief. Yesterday, I spoke to George's family and expressed the sorrow of our entire nation for their loss. I stand before you as a friend and ally to every American seeking justice and peace, and I stand before you in firm opposition to anyone exploiting this tragedy to loot, rob, attack, and menace. Healing, not hatred, justice, not chaos, are the mission at hand. The police officers involved in this incident have been fired from their jobs. One officer has already been arrested and charged with murder. State and federal authorities are carrying out an investigation to see what further charges may be warranted, including against, sadly, the other three. In addition, my administration has opened a civil rights investigation, and I have asked the Attorney General and the Justice Department to expedite it. I understand the pain that people are feeling. We support the right of peaceful protesters, and we hear their pleas. But what we are now seeing on the streets of our cities has nothing to do with justice or with peace. The memory of George Floyd is being dishonored by rioters, looters, and anarchists.
The system is rigged. It's rigged against them. It's not even evenly rigged against them. So, in black communities, there's the perception it's specifically rigged against us. And you know what? It is. But the way it is very subtle, right? It's not a matter of racism being ubiquitous, inside every white head. It's not like that. This has very little to do with modern racism. But what it has to do with is a property of our system.
I haven't gotten the chance to vet this news article. I don't know the race of the person who received this massive amount of money and this acceptance into universities. And what a surprise. Now, don't get me wrong. This young lady is probably incredibly smart. Smarter than I am, for sure. But what Weinstein is missing is that the system is set up in a way that universities and companies afterwards will literally trip over themselves trying to hire blacks and Latinos instead of just removing race from the equation and judging people based on merit. Somehow, your skin color makes a difference in how you sit in an office on a computer all day. More like it helps you virtue signal as a company over how many of X race you have in your company. And don't get me started on the chief diversity officer position. Basically a made-up inquisitional position designed to give a black female an executive position, and whose only role is to bitch and moan about racism that doesn't exist.
How dare you?
From that, where we're dealing with the echoes of slavery, and it doesn't get addressed. And when people do bring it up and they start talking about reparations, people roll their eyes and people go, oh, that was so long ago. But the results of that are still alive today in the South.
You're fucking a white male!
No, Joe. You don't care to see it, but what black people are experiencing today is a direct result of FDR's welfare program and LBJ instituting programs that, in his own words, will keep those N-words voting Democrat for the next 200 years. These programs destroyed the black family structure.
The fact that ancient racism, people who are dead, their racism still haunts us today through mechanisms of the reproduction of patterns of distribution. And mind you, when people hear distribution, they freak out because they think you're talking about wealth. I'm not talking about wealth, and we can talk about why I wouldn't bother. But what we're talking about is opportunity.
No, Bret. Slavery isn't the reason blacks today are having such a hard time. During the early to mid-1900s, a black child was more likely to be born into a married nuclear family than they are today. The party of the KKK, Democrats, went door to door after civil rights and told black families that they'd get more benefits if the mothers were unmarried and the fathers were out of the picture. This destroyed the black family structure and gave the Democrats a large dependent voter base that didn't care about the issues. They only cared about handouts. I mean, just look at most black people's mindsets on things. They have more in common with the conservative living in middle America than they do with the Democrat plantation owners.
To the extent that I think we can all recognize that there is something absolutely organic about the anger that has caused people to spill into the streets in large numbers.
Yeah, I wonder what made a bunch of leftist idiots ready to get out onto the streets over a statistical non-issue. Oh, that's right. Maybe it's the Wuhan flu quarantine that's been going on and destroying the economy and putting millions out of work. Maybe that's where the anger is coming from, but yeah, let's pretend that it's the death of a career criminal. That's the reason, sure. Anyways, thank you for watching. If you want to support my channel, like, comment, and subscribe, or don't. Like a true classical liberal, you do you, my dude.
Trigger warning. I exist. I love Trump. Hey, I'ma vote Trump 2020, Trump 2020. I'ma vote Trump 2020.